It is the West Tigers podcast, episode number 451 with Declan and Josh. And gentlemen, we'll have one word in a moment or two. But I can't help think that performance over in New Zealand was to honour episode number 450 of the West Tigers podcast. Would that be right?
I think
Yeah, I
so.
see smiles.
I don't know. I feel like we've had a few milestones before and they haven't really backed it up on the field. But maybe, yeah, maybe they've got the memo this time.
On track for that 500th grand final episode, Joel.
That's
So,
it. Yes, that's
mm,
they want to coincide and bring it all together.
mhm.
32-14 was the final score. Um, I've got a list of one words just from my own brain and a list of one word submissions on that game from the members of the West Tigers podcast forum. Thank you to everybody. We'll run through those shortly. Nick's not here tonight, but his word he submitted was resilient. And I think that's a word that's going to come up a fair bit. Declan, what have you got for that almost unexpected, although some of us did tip that it was a possibility last week. That very delightful win in New Zealand.
Well, yeah, because Nick sent that message for his one word 5 minutes before the podcast started recording. So I've been scrambling to find another one because I
I
was going to
stole
use
it.
resilience as well. So I'll use the Scottish word for resilience, which is mentality, which is essentially the same thing. Like we just had like such a great mentality to like start the game where we were all kind of panicked, like, oh no, like the two tries the Warriors scored, they kind of just kind of fell over the line. Like it wasn't like they threw that much at us and we looked a little bit like a deer in the headlight. But we just had that mentality just to stay in the fight until we got a little bit of momentum. And then we were clinical enough to take our opportunities when they presented themselves. So, yeah, I think strong mentality would be my two words for the
I like it.
podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, because so many professional sports are both physical and mental, and maybe that's somewhere where there are some changes compared to West Tigers, years gone by. But yeah, what about you, Josh? What do you got for us?
My one word is fitness, Joel. Benji talked a lot about standards in the off season, and you really saw it come through the other night. We scored 3 tries in the last 10 minutes of the first half and 2 tries in the last 10 minutes of the second half.
Yeah.
That comes down to being the fitter team, to being the team that is still going at the end of that half. You know, footy's a lot quicker this year with all the six agains, and the boys just were fitter and quicker and stronger at the end of both halves, and that allowed us to dominate on the scoreboard and get home. So Benji talked a lot about standards. It feels like we're really showing those standards on the field too. So
Well, I'm going
very
to
excited.
I'm going to postpone my one words for a few moments because I think you've made a really good point. And not only is it fitness, but it's the way that we're able to use the bench this year is so much more effective. For example, I've got Terrell here. He played 50 minutes. Pole only played 37 minutes. Now, last year that would have been a major problem because we didn't have a whole lot of thrust off the bench. But I mean, Royce Hunt comes on. He was fantastic once again. Seyfarth, Sione Fainu were able to do that rotation so much better, get 80 minutes out of both KPP and Samuela. And obviously Twal, who's just a machine this year again. I think that's contributing as well. Like we're not having to extend out guys like Terrell May, and then they get fatigued. Everybody on the field is fresher.
Yeah, and you saw that, as you said, with like Terrell May is playing less minutes, but I think we're getting just as much effectiveness out of him. You're getting 20 good minutes out of Royce. You're getting 30 good minutes out of Sione. And Twali played 70 minutes and I think 70 incredible minutes there. So you're not having to use some of the players as much off the bench, and I think that's getting quality out of that small piece. But yeah, the edge back rows, especially as you said, with those 80-minute performances, it's 80 minutes of quality, which
Yeah.
perhaps on the right edge we weren't getting last year too. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And hopefully, fingers crossed, that's consistent right throughout the year. If those boys can stay on the field and stay in those positions and build those combinations, we'll hopefully only get better. My words, I've got tested. I thought the team, the club, and the players were tested by that road trip, by the task that was ahead of them, and I thought they passed it with flying colours. Deja vu was a one word that I wrote down after 20 minutes, where our left side was having problems and we were conceding tries that were coming thick and fast there for a little bit, and a few people may have gone off a little bit early. I'm not going to mention any names of people that were like, "Oh, this is going to be a 50-point loss."
Nick.
But a few people were a bit worried at that point. I thought our defense in the red zone was fantastic. I've also got 50 in terms of 50-50. So that win keeps us at 50-50 since July last year. So that was the Roosters game at the football stadium that we won. We've continued to have a 50% record since then, um, which tells us and feeds into that Richo meter of being average, which is we have if you're average, then you're going to have good and you're going to have not so good performances. But if we keep being average, we'll go somewhere. We can build on that. But I thought, Declan, I thought moments was probably my favorite one word because there were some moments in that game that could have gone either way, but we made them come our way. Like, for example, Kai Pierce Paul, he managed to, I think it was a steal, but there were just some little moments in the game that maybe the West Tigers in the past might not have won. And it was so good to see us win those little moments.
Yeah, yeah, the Kuiper spot one being in the right position, like being disciplined enough to be square at marker to then be available to challenge for the ball. I was a little bit surprised when the ref didn't penalise it because it seems like sometimes the ref just flips a coin with those ones, no matter
Yeah.
like how square they play. But yeah, it was a good effort from him. And then like probably got like a little bit of luck with the Kai Pierce Paul try as well because the more they were looking at it, I was just like, I
Yeah.
think it was the right call in the end, but I was like, just absolutely convinced that the more they looked at it, the more they were going to try and overturn it. But we got like a 50-50 call there, probably, even though I think it was the right decision. Got the Warriors sin bin as well. That kind of came out of nowhere. I did see that people were a bit annoyed about that one, but I thought it was a clear sin bin because Tavana was clearly running like towards the 20-meter line, and he didn't even jump in his in goal. So he was clearly in the in goal when he caught it. And yeah, I think there was a memo that they're going to be really clear on that was a professional foul if someone tried to block their line to the 20. So I don't really know what people are complaining about there. And then also, I thought it was a pretty big moment when Dalentine Selesniak went up for the ball on our try line, and
Yeah.
Makasini had the presence of mind not to tackle him in the air, but remain like alive to tackle him when he got down. Because if he didn't do that, he probably scores, and then the Warriors have more time to get that second try, and the game's back on. So yeah, just little stuff like that. I think the team did a good job of in terms of attention to detail.
Mm. That feeds into probably, what I think is the logical thing to talk about, and that is our backline, Josh. I mean, I've got written down here in my notes after like 20 minutes, it's the backline is so inexperienced and they're up against a star-studded international packed, very, very experienced backline. Something flicked in the at 24 minutes, and it was just they came of age. I mean, Tavana on debut, I just can't speak highly enough of how well Buller, all of them did.
Yeah, I was really impressed. As you said, like, there's three young kids, and even Taruva was playing his third game in the centers for his career. Like for him, that's kind of
Yeah.
brand new position. And the fact that they changed on the run, as you said, they changed the way they were defending, especially Makasini kind of went from drifting back to actually going up and hitting his opposite. To change that kind of approach on the run and go, actually, we need to do this better. That's the kind of thing you see from experienced centers, guys with, 100, 150 games. For the three of them with about 15 games between them to play that well, to play that composed. Declan mentioned the one on DWZ, like that was really smart play. Like it's not just young kid with plenty of energy. That was
Mm.
actually the opposite of what a young kid would do. I think they were so impressive. Tavana in his first game, like they weren't perfect and they still made mistakes. And I'm still not sure I want to see Luke Lally in the first grade side for very long. But against a really experienced backline, as you said, they did enough to kind of keep us in the game, to not make mistakes. They got better as the match went on. Tavana, there's something about him, I guess. I'm
Yeah.
not sure he's perfect, but it's really interesting and it's really exciting to watch. Yeah, I thought they were really good. Buller, obviously, I thought played his best game of the year. I think we talked about kind of, how he'd been playing. I think he was, every time he touched the ball, he looked like he was going to cause trouble.
Yep.
And he was really safe under the high ball. Like, I think that really came through. He kind of took every catch. And the halves, which I'm sure we'll get to, were just incredible. So
I want to talk a little bit more about Tavana in a moment or two, but Buller, so 17 runs, 175 metres, 6 tackle breaks. The good news is that Connor Tracy looks like re-signing with the Bulldogs. Dare we dream? Look, last week I know I got a little bit of feedback on being a little bit negative on Buller, Declan, but last week it was probably justified. But that was a fantastic performance. That if he can do that on a pretty regular basis, maybe that's his A game. Then I'm happy to pay the money. But what we'd seen in previous rounds, I was concerned about. But what did you make of that? And is he the guy that we go? I know we say this every week based on his performance, but what's your feeling about Buller?
Yeah, I think that like overall, like obviously he had a great game. Like but I think overall with these things, I kind of agreed more with you, Joe, where like obviously everyone knows that he's a great player, but it's just how much we're willing to pay. That's like how much is he worth? That's
Mm.
the kind of question. And like although like he did play well this week, which is great and fantastic, but is he worth the kind? Because it's clear, like from me looking as a third party, it's clear that there's some sort of like there's not a meeting in the middle in terms of how much he thinks he's worth as opposed to how much the club thinks he's worth. So like I can kind of see the club's perspective if like Bill is wanting like 900k to a million k to re-sign. I'm just not sure that like he's worth that much money at the moment. And like obviously it depends as well about like who you can get to replace them, how much you have to pay them, and like
Mm.
obviously we all want to re-sign Billa. Like no one's saying that. Like
Yeah,
we,
it's not just about what amount of money. That's right.
yeah, and that's just what all the great clubs like the Penrith Panthers, the Melbourne Storms, they get the salary cap right in terms of how much
Mm.
they're paying their star players, and like it would just be great if Billa re-signed because he's clearly like like he's got so much like raw potential, and then you can see him like finally starting to like look good with the ball in attack as well. And as Josh said, he was really safe this week, and I don't know, it was just something about him. But yeah, I think just the amount of money that we were paying him, I think that's really important because he's probably not that top tier of fullback. And I know it's harsh because we won, but I think that's just how I see it at the moment. I'm probably gonna cop it in the comments, but
Yeah.
so be it.
Declan's going to cop it. Josh,
Yeah.
last week in the midweek pod, we were speaking about no Jerome Luai. We need Buller to be more involved in our offense. Uh, Now, is there something to say perhaps that we played a little bit more direct without Luai there? Luai can sometimes be a little bit sideways. And maybe Buller sort of needs that. He needs to have the team more making forward progress and then come in on the back of that, more direct. If you look at the South game, maybe we were a little bit too left and right, which it probably doesn't, not probably, I would say definitely doesn't suit Buller's game. We need to be making those yards forward.
yeah, I think so, and I think obviously every game's different. I think also Jock Madden kind of playing a more traditional halfback role probably opened up a little bit more of that space on the edge, which helped Dewey and helped Buller as well, because he was kind of controlling the middle. And then I think when Latu came on, and we had those effectively three halves playing, it just creates more opportunities. But I think sometimes this was probably one of his better games. It was not so much the couple of breaks he did make for me. It was the fact that every time he got tackled, he kind of looked like he was poking his nose through. And if you do that enough,
Mm.
then you are going to get one or two. I think he did get a little bit more space. Perhaps the inexperience of his fellow backline players kind of put a little bit more pressure on him. And maybe he has signed a contract and he's just feeling better and he's
Mm.
ready for that announcement this week. So who knows?
I'm still worried about the Dragons. Just on Connor Tracy, does he remind you guys at all of Corey Thompson?
Oh my God,
Sometimes,
yes.
Yes, yes,
Before you said it, I was like, yeah, someone like
yep.
Corey Thompson. Yeah.
he really does remind me of Corey Thompson. Yeah. And just on the Bulldogs, it's been a good weekend, hasn't it? Like Manly's in crisis, the Bulldogs are in strife. Their star halfback's struggling. And I'd just like to make the point. It's facetious, I know, but how much has that halfback who used to play for us? How much has his game improved over there under better coaching? It's quite phenomenal, isn't it? Yeah.
Incredible improvement. Yeah, yeah.
Incredible improvement, yeah. One word submissions from the West Tigers podcast forum. Wayne, Wayne sent me a message on Facebook. He said the word for him was complete. The most complete 80 minutes of football I've seen for many years. There was a couple of members of the West Tigers podcast forum who celebrated birthdays this weekend, and the West Tigers gave them a very happy birthday present. CQ Tiger, their word was happy birthday. The win coincided with my 70th birthday. Sorry, not 90th, the 70th birthday. And Numerator's word was birthday miracle. So well done to those guys and happy birthday. Tigersmen deserved. They worked hard for that victory. Mac Tiger's word was tough. A tough footy side threw a lot at us, but we were tougher. Also, Mac Tiger came back with kicked. Madden kicked them to death. And surprise, I would have settled for an honourable loss, but that was a surprise. Teddy S's word was belief, from players to coach. Tiger Town SFS, coaching. Tiger Alex, their word was defence. Yanni said Marshall. Lots of critics, but they've gone quiet after that performance. LFC Tiger, wow, it turned this doubter into a believer. Dirty Reds, their word was atypical. In other words, not a usual West Tigers-like performance, saying the resilience was outstanding. NatMac78, proud, incredible effort. Pat Walker, their word was edited here, holy FS. That was incredible. Well done, Pat Walker. We let that one through to the keeper, but let's not make that a standard for the forum, please. Tigers Stew, too hard to pick one word. They went with standards, resilience, defence, and fitness. Mike's word was unexpected, but pleasantly. Benny81, different. They look different this year, more composed, less fatigued, more hungry. And Snake's word was 80. We have a team that can now compete for 80 minutes. Back to the guy that we are talking about a little bit before, Tavana, Declan. Is he on a train and trial deal? Is that right? I would
I
be
believe
expecting.
so.
Yeah,
Yeah, he might be a development player, but I think he's training trial.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I think
Should
so.
we be changing that?
Um, Good question. I think that it's tough because in some ways he's kind of not the modern day winger in the sense that like he's not like someone who's going to get your sets to a strong start. But then on the other hand, he's just really athletic, and he just got something about him where like you feel like he can kind of pull a rabbit out of the hat sometimes, and he's really athletic and he can get down the field. Like that KPP try, that was one example where he out jumped Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, led to the try. Then there was another one as well where he got down there and made Roger Tuivasa-Sheck knock the ball on as well, where we got possession again. And I just think the new rules with blockers just means that like the competition in the air is just so important for swinging momentum. Like if a team like kicks the ball in the halfway line, there's a real good chance that they can like force a mistake from the opposition. Like I was just watching the Dragons and Titans game just then. I think Kenny knocked it on like twice, just like from pure just like kick pressure. So he brings like a lot of that as well, and obviously he's great in the air. Like people like we haven't really seen that in the NRL yet, but like he's a real aerial threat. And but yeah, I don't know. But then if we do have like kind of like bigger, more like meteor kind of forwards when like May comes back, if Stafford Toe is fit, Makasini's obviously a big body, then maybe we could afford to carry like kind of an X factor winger, and obviously like, Chiruva as well is like good with his carriage. So yeah, and I think Josh also like picked it up as well. Like he was just so reliable after the first 20 minutes under the high ball, and the Warriors definitely peppered him as well, and he stood up to it in a big way. So yeah, I'd be keen. I thought he would debut this year, but I didn't think he'd be this soon. But yeah, like passing marks, I reckon.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Josh, I mean, we've spoken a little bit about depth in the outside backs, and we all sort of assumed that Patrick Herbert was next man up. It appears that Jarrell Skelton might have been injured last week. That might have contributed to his relatively poor game against South. But Tavana's sort of come out of nowhere, even to the point where he was nearly cut, I believe, in the off season.
Benji did mention that, and he also mentioned that they needed to get an exemption to play him, which is a strange one because we had Herbert and Sakura both available in New South Wales Cup, played just before the first grade. So I'm not sure how you get that exemption, but I'm glad we did.
Yeah.
I think he adds real depth. It's really interesting going forward. I mean, you kind of go, well, Skelton might have been injured, but he was on the bench, which means he could have played 80 minutes if someone went down in the first, first few minutes.
Yeah.
Um, but it's interesting when they're all come back fit, is you've got Taruva probably on one wing and Makasini on the other, but then who is your bench back? If Skelton was behind Tavana and Lali's leaving, maybe Tavana spends quite a bit of the season on that bench backline spot. I mean, I assume they'll rotate them a little bit because you don't want guys just kind of sitting
Yeah.
there every week. But so maybe he does get, we have two spare spots. I don't think we're going to be signing any big names the rest of the season, you'd imagine. So perhaps he does get promoted to the top to up to the top 30. And with Lally leaving next year, with Mason, I assume, not being resigned, Will Craig obviously not being re-signed. Sakura's in reserve grade, but his contract ends. There are a bit of a spots in that top 30 kind of next year for those kind of backup outside backs. So hopefully he comes through and keeps showing some of what he did the other night. Because even if it's just to start this week and then maybe next week and then goes back to reserve grade for a while, it'd be good to see him, progress.
Yeah, well, things will definitely change when Toa and May are available again, and I'd like to see Makasini go back out onto the wing. I think two of our three tries that we conceded were between him and Lay Lily and Macas and Madden. I think in that area. Then they probably never really played there together before, so hopefully that improves. But yeah, I think ideally for Macassini's development, maybe these few weeks in the centres, probably overall not a bad thing, but I'd love to see him be able to go back to the wing and just settle in a little bit more. But I was really impressed with Tavana. I thought he was really, really good. Let's talk about the halves. So this time last week, we were saying Adam Dewey's gone for 4 weeks or whatever it was going to be. 210 metres, two line breaks. Everyone was saying, well, do we pick Jock Madden? Is he the New South Wales Cup half? Like, how's he going to go? Declan, I thought they complemented each other really, really well. And what I liked was that Madden was able to take most of the kicking duties off of Dewey. And Madden's got a good kicking game.
Yeah, I thought that the one thing that is great to see with Jock Madden is that he's clearly had like a lot of experience in Queensland Cup, where like to see these kind of one percenters of his game, like the kicking, like finding like he found the grass again, and it was quite similar to like the Roosters trial as well, where every time he kicked the ball, he found the grass. There was one amazing kick that Samuel Afanu chased where I think it was nearly even we even nearly got like I think no actually we did get a goal line drop out of it, but then the Warriors kicked short and they got it back. But just stuff like that we don't usually see with our kicking because it's not really that technically precise. But Madden just added like another layer to it, and I thought that like even the Warriors were really really shocked about how much of a difference Madden straighten up the line made, and it just made them just concave like so much more inwards, and then it gave Drury the opportunity to run one on one. I think one on one with Metcalf, who was coming off an ACL. So you got one on one with him for one of the tries and just managed to get through him. And then I think they managed to isolate Hannah Boyd as well for one of the other tries as well. So, and I think last year as well, coming on, like another playmaker who could straighten up things in the second half. Like him and Jock just did a great job of creating space for the outside players, which is why I think you saw some of the Warriors defenders making those kind of poor choices. Like I remember I think Selesniak's one of them just like went completely past the
Yeah.
ball and took himself out of play, which like gave the space for Dewey to pass it to Luke. So yeah, I think like Jock was just it was great to see like him just show that like he is like good enough to play first grade. And I was a big fan of him when he was here the first time. So like him to come
Mm.
back and play well, it's good to see. And then Adam Dewey, I think it was just like his kind of game where he was just playing that like pure 5'8" role. All he really had to do was run the ball, and he picked his times really, really well. Like if I'm being super critical, I think like he was a little bit ball stoppy at the very start when the Warriors were kind of up on our line. I think he didn't really connect well with the outside, but then when the game opened up and there was more space, he really did
Yeah.
like take it to the Warriors, and he was the difference. And I think he was the best player on the field. So I don't really know. I have more questions than answers for our long term kind of spine at the moment, but they're good problems to have, I think.
The funny thing is, you're watching Dewey and you're like, he looks slow and lumbering, but he just keeps finding himself in space. He just keeps finding these opportunities, and you can't work out how that happens. But to his credit, I mean, it really is incredible watching his career and seeing the changes and the challenges, and he keeps finding a way and finding another skill. I wanted to ask you, Josh, about Madden. So, I mean, if you look at the really good teams over the last however many years, Jerome Hughes, Adam Reynolds, Nathan Cleary, they're all sort of traditional game controlling halfbacks, good kicking game, that sort of thing. Like, as Declan said, there's question marks around the Tigers' halves. Madden and Luai together, and then you could sort of try and find something else for Dewey. I don't know. It's going to be hard because if Madden keeps playing like that, I can't see him losing his position. Or does he just become the benchy?
I think he becomes the benchy, and look, he had a great game. I think it was, since I said, very traditional halfback game, and I loved how deep he dug into the line, and then was throwing the passes. I think this was not so much just Madden, but the way they set it up is he was digging right into the line and then throwing it deep, so it was creating a lot of space for Adam to kind of run through, like he almost wasn't right on the line. As you said, Adam looked really slow, but all of it, but like they just left big gaps for him. But it was weird, but amazing. Um, I think Madden is a top class backup halfback. I think he does a lot of things right. Um, but I still think Jerome and Adam is the right combination for us going forward. But you have injuries. Adam obviously has an injury history. Jerome has an injury at the moment, and also could play Origin.
Yeah.
Uh, we have probably lots of use for that halfback. But then also you've got Latu coming on, although it looked like he was used in that lock role. I'm not exactly sure where because Twal hadn't gone off and Seafarth came on.
Mm,
So I'm
mm.
not really sure where they were all playing, but it looked really nice coming off the bench. But I think he'll play more in that kind of made up middle role than a half. But I love having Jock Madden, and with a six-man bench, you can generally should be able to carry Latu and Jock on the bench. One of them might have to play some hooker. So I think that may be where
Mm.
Jock goes as the season goes on. But it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the thing I saw about Latu is that he looks really slim. Like it
Mm.
doesn't look like he spent a preseason like getting ready to play like in the forwards, coming off the bench. Like because like he is someone who's played naturally, like with quite a bit of size in the past, because he's quite nuggety. And when you see him in real life, like he's not small at all. And he's obviously a great defender. So I don't know. I think that I wouldn't I still think that I'm not sure I see Dewey as the long term seven, even though he is playing really well at the moment. I think that like he could be moved to the 13. I'm being very negative this podcast. I'm not trying to be, but I just think that like when we play against like great teams that are jamming us and the space for Dewey to run isn't really there. I'm a little bit worried that he is a bit of a ball stopper sometimes,
Mm.
where like that could be a problem for us if we want it. Like, well, we should probably obviously like make the eight first, like try and make the finals first. But like, maybe the calculation is like Dewey to 13, where he can kind of run the ball a lot and still be that link guy. But then Latu and Luai have the finesse to kind of break down like better like defensive structures. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it. But
Mm.
Latu's body shape didn't look like he'd bulked up a lot, which I thought was kind of telling.
Great problems to have, though, aren't
Yeah.
they? Like we have four guys in Luai, Dewey, Madden, Latu, who could all come on and play a really great role in the halves and create stuff. And
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 Javon as
obviously,
well.
And
yeah,
Javon.
and
Mm.
Javon, who had a fantastic game in New South Wales Cup and looks like he's got lots of potential. And then, of course, Alex Twal, ball playing in the middle. How about that
Mm.
flick pass? So,
Mm.
um, it's a great problem to have. And it's weird as a West Tigers fan to have that problem.
I would like to see, and this is no disrespect to Dewey, but I would love to see Luai and Madden play together and see how that combination works. Yeah, but it's really hard because we spent the off season talking about Locke and Alex Twal, who Josh, you're absolutely right to get onto that topic. 48 tackles, flick passes, offloads, reliable, dependable, doesn't miss tackles. I mean, Dewey and Twal, I thought were the best two players on the field. I don't know what it is with Alex, how he's been able to do this. And I know I'm repetitive about it, but I'm just wowed again by that performance.
I think one of the things for me, and it's not just like he has had other times where the stats are good, although the run meters, 130 meters is probably, more than he usually would get. But it's the quality of it. Like he
Mm,
was hitting people. Like
mm,
Alex Run normally is just tackling people. He was hitting people, his lines was good. And his runs were they were putting the Warriors they weren't sure where to go. He was going on angles. He was passing the ball. As I said, he created a line break with a flick pass. Who is this guy? I mean, it's fantastic.
yeah.
I can't remember seeing another player at like 29 who's changed so much and probably over a couple of years. Like last year was, and he started to show some of this, but not
Yes.
to this extent. Player at that stage of his career is just having a breakout year so far.
Mm.
Incredible.
And you can also look at compare and contrast where we were 12 months ago, Declan. We're purely speaking, I guess, in offense, but the whole team has changed, hasn't it? The way that we play the game, we look happier, more settled. It just looks more cohesive than a year ago. And obviously, we're talking a little bit about the guy that's now at the Bulldogs, but that must have been more disruption than we could see from the outside. I just think that we're just such a better unit than what we were a year ago.
Well, yeah, I think we like to our credit, I think even on the pod last year, we all said that, Galvin was the focal point. Like he was our Tommy Turbo, where like everything was kind of set up around him to to be the kind of X factor player. Like even Luai was taking a backseat playing that seven role, just
Yeah.
doing the kind of like general getting the team around apart. So obviously when you take that out, it's going to have some changes. But yeah, I think Benji as well in the press conference said that they've worked really hard on a system where like people can come in and come out, but everyone knows their job, which I thought last year wasn't always like accurate. But I think it's a really telling sign of great coaching when someone like Jock Madden can come in, and he hasn't even played any cup this year. So he's come in like after playing the trials, like a 2 or 3 week break, and just absolutely nailed his role, which shows me that the coaching staff is clearly communicating like what he wants from our halves and what he wants from all our players. And then not only that, defensively as well, like the forward pack as a whole only missed 5 tackles the entire game against like a state of origin level caliber of like Warriors pack. I mean, like some of those guys are just insane. So to kind of like go toe to toe with them in New Zealand as well, I think was great. So
Yeah.
I think just the kind of setup that Benji's got is clearly showing that everyone knows their roles and what's expected of them, and they're going out and executing.
Also, got to give a big rap to to John Morris, who's the defensive coach. 20 missed tackles. The Warriors made 46 missed tackles. Josh, it's an area of our game which has also significantly improved in the last 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, that's 3 games in a row we've let in 20 points or less. I had a look back at last year, and I think when we let in 20 points or less, we had 8 wins and 3 losses. When we
Yeah.
let in more than 20 points, we lost every game. I think maybe one we might have won. I can't remember exactly how many, but
Yeah.
um, this year we've gone our first 3 games and we haven't let in more than 20 points. I mean, that's the forwards are working really hard, and that's with a back line that is, I think if you come at the start of the season and said our outside backs would have been Tavana, Taruva in the centres, Makasini in the centres, and Lally on the wing, most people, when asked how many points we would let in a game, would say somewhere between 30 and 40.
Yeah.
The fact we're doing it, our forwards and our bats, Kai Pearce-Paul on that right edge has made such a difference
Yeah.
just to that, especially with all the other weaknesses. The defense has been incredible. So John Morris and Benji and the forwards with their work should get much applause because I think we're probably one of the kind of top 3 defensive sides so far this year. And we've got
Mm.
like the Warriors are a great side. They put 40 on the last 2 teams they played. It's not like, and they weren't bad the other night. I didn't think like they were doing lots right. We just
Yeah.
outplayed them, which was probably not on anyone's bingo card, but before that game. So yeah,
Exactly.
incredible defense.
Yeah. A very gutsy performance because there was a lot thrown at them and they just kept sticking and they just kept finding a way. I mentioned Royce Hunt earlier, who I probably think it was maybe the turning point in the game was when he got that ball down. Took us into with the lead at halftime. really wowed by his performance again. No Bunty, Declan. Everybody was saying Bunty's going to make his debut this week against his old team. Any idea what's going on there? I thought him. I still want to see him and Hunt come on and mix it up.
Um, I just think that like the other players ahead of him have all just played really well. I mean, I think like the thing about Sione Fino is that he's playing minutes of a starting forward. Like he's coming off the bench, but he's playing like I think he played 40 plus minutes against South. I'm not sure how many minutes he played against the Warriors, but he's playing big minutes usually as well. And then Hunt's coming in, like bringing that physicality which was really, really good against that big Warriors pack. And then, Seyfarth is kind of coming in towards the end of the game to it's a fresh kind of set of legs just to clean up the middle and then, like make sure that like we're still going well defensively. So I just don't like because all the kind of middle forwards have slightly different roles. So like in Benji's kind of calculation, like if he's already got Hunt for that kind of like 20 minutes of just pure physicality, I'm not sure you can add like another one because then you're going to have to change like either Finu or Seyfarth's role as well. So I think he's just got a really good like mix. I think obviously if Hunt goes down or if one of the stars goes down, Bunty will he'll come in. But at the moment, like it's hard when like we've won, like we've had a pretty good start to the season, so you're not really tempted to drop anyone.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you're winning or you're going close, you're not going to make too many changes. And I guess it's just good, Josh, that you've got someone with Bunty's, I think, 127 first grade game. You've got that bit of experience to call on because we probably will, touch wood, lose a prop at some stage this year.
Yeah, I mean, you go into any season, you need backup props. You've got your two starting props, you've got your two bench props. If we didn't have Bunty, the depth is somewhat thin. Maverick Guy was good in the cup game at prop as well, but he's not really a prop so much. So Bunty is that first cab off the rank there. So I think him coming in as that depth, and I guess that's what happens when you've got good depth is that you have good players in reserve grade. I'm excited to see Bunty, but I think it'll only come when someone is injured or they give someone a rest. There is an option to kind of rotate there. Maybe if we have a 5-day turnaround or something
Yeah.
for one of the props. So, yeah.
It's really weird because again, in the off season and earlier this year, we're saying we're worried about the depth, worried about this, we're worried about that, and some things have turned out to be completely. It was nothing to worry about. Like, I don't know if we can sustain it without some more experience in the back line, and we'll probably have different sort of games that maybe test them a little bit more. Obviously, the Eels on Easter Monday, they lost big time, but I thought they still looked pretty dangerous, especially on their right, which would be focusing on our left, Declan. It'd be nice to get a couple of troops back, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. The Eels, I think they've just got like great attacking players. Like they've got two really good attacking edge back rows who ironically both played for us.
Yeah,
So that's interesting. But yeah, and like no Youngie, like looks like he's going
mm,
to be out. And Matt Jury ACL and Hopgood ACL as well. So they're
yeah,
like got a few injuries in the forwards. I think we've got them in the forward pack. But yeah, it's probably that back line because like Moses and Pezzett are really class operators. I rate them both. Like obviously Moses is a great player. Everyone knows that. But Pezza as well. I think he's kind of found his feet. I think defensively, that's kind of where they've probably like been a little bit disappointed because although they beat the Broncos, which was a good win,
yeah,
and like Penrith could probably do that to every team in the comp on
yeah.
their day. So like we probably can't take too much away from that. But I think defensively, I think we can really get at them on Monday. And like we probably have more for even though like Luai is not going to play like Mays, like we don't really have anyone expected to come back. So it's probably going to be the same team.
Mm.
But I think we've got probably more like confidence going into the game. And it's going to be a real test of like, okay, here's like a big game where it's a 50-50 in terms of, expectations, like a power home game. Like, let's see what happens, see how they play. And I think as well, like, it just showed, like, I think, because I remember last year, even though we beat them the first game, the second game, the physicality that they brought off the bench,
Yeah.
like, I remember that young prop from the Eels pretty much ended Jack Bird's career
Mm.
like with one of those head ups. But now like having guys like Hunt on the bench who bring that size, I think that's going to be something really different that let us down in that second game last year. And I'm really hoping that we can like put a score on them, hopefully.
Well, I think we zoom out a little bit and go macro, and my point being, Josh, that it's not unusual for the West Tigers to ambush a better team and come away with a win. Like we've done it a number of times through West Tigers history. It's been a keyed up, throw everything at them and come away with the win type of performance. Um, but I don't feel that was necessarily what happened on Friday night in New Zealand. I don't feel like they drained every ounce of fuel, for want of a better term, in the current climate. But I felt like that was actually just a pretty good indication of where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, usually when those things happen, we're kind of full strength and we're at home, and so the crowd's behind us. And
Yeah,
this was a weakened team going to New Zealand against a Warriors side that were flying. Then with their star half back, um, it was like, and we played a good, consistent game. We just beat them. Like it wasn't like it was. We just pulled that out of them. Of just we kept going and going, and they couldn't go with us over each half. And so I think that's a very different. Like in my opinion, that's our best win in. I would say. I reckon a best win since the Ivan Cleary days when we kind of won that bunch of games at the start of a year against Storm and Roosters and that kind of thing.
Roosters. Yeah,
Um, but since then, I'd like we've had wins, as you said, but it's generally been we've surprised a team, maybe with a few injuries, or last year we played some good games, and the Dogs game was a good one. But we had every reason to be up for the Dogs game. We had every reason not to win on Friday night, and no one would have been too disappointed if we'd kind of lost and it'd been a close game and the boys had put a good effort. People would have gone, yeah, Tigers were okay. It's in New Zealand, fair enough. We had every reason for kind of that mental not quite get there, and we got there, and
yeah.
and probably it was dominant in the end. I mean, we almost won by 20 points, like 18 points. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, it was a very different win to probably anything I've seen for a while, and I think that puts us in really good stead for the season going forward. Injuries will play their part, and I think it's about consistency, which we need to see. But I think even the Bunnies lost. Like we've played three good games of footy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's been a quality that isn't repeatable. If you keep guys on the park, especially in the forwards, where we do have some depth in the forwards as well, though. So we don't keep everyone on the park, but it felt like fit, repeatable football, which
Yes.
is not even when we won other games, there was a bit of luck or something spectacular.
Hmm.
This didn't feel spectacular or luck. It felt just good, repeatable footy, which is kind of what the Warriors have been doing the last couple of years for their
Yeah.
wins. And we out-warried them. So I was, yeah, really impressive.
Which kind of comes back to that really early point about the Richo meter. We've gone in the last maybe year, even just a year, from poor to substandard to average. Like I think there's something to build on there. Just on memorable wins. Um, Definitely that Roosters game, but I'm going to also throw out the game against the Panthers in the wet at Bathurst, where we broke that, was it for like 14 game losing streak? That was a pretty special effort, that one. Coming just on that whole being settled and having something to build on, Declan. So I did hear that Sean Mielicamp was saying that basically we're not going to be going to market and spending, we're not going to be bringing in too many more players, which I don't mind. There's a few areas that we'd like to strengthen, I think. But I think that if you look at the teams that are generally consistently good, make the finals. They're not bipolar. They're very consistent rosters. They tweak around the edges. They make small changes. They're not doing big clean outs, big player recruitment, that sort of thing. I mean, the Sharks come to mind. They went down to Canberra today, did the job because they all know each other. They've played however many games together. Being settled is where we can continue to build off. We need to remain settled on field and off field.
Yeah, and like even look at Penrith last year, where like they had Tuolagi came in, they lost Luai, and they
Mm,
like lost Fisher Harris, and they were coming last at one point.
yeah.
And yes, maybe burnout as well from winning the grand final had a part to play. But now look at them, like they've just had those reps, and they're much more um like in sync, and you can tell that like it's finally clicking. And like I think we're the same as well. I think as you said before, it kind of started like at the Roosters game last year where it looks like we've kind of clicked in terms of like how we want to play. And now we've obviously added Kai Pierce-Paul. Like he's made a big difference, another bit of quality. Like we've had another preseason, so everyone looks a little bit sharper. And yeah, like and I think Richardson as well, before he got booted, did say that, with Bula and Luai, um, but assuming that they would like both stay long term, there's not that much money in the cap, and like our roster would be kind of locked in for the next 2 years, which I think coincides with when the May brothers come off contract. So yeah, like if Bula does stay, then I'd expect that to be true, where we'd only kind of bring like people around the edges and not make any like kind of like bigger signings in terms of like salary cap money, and then like hopefully we can like bring a few guys in like through the pathways as well,
Yeah.
like all the successful teams do. Hopefully that still continues.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if they can lock Bulla in long term, I think we've got like kind of a Cronulla Sharks situation where like we've got the kind of team long term, and it's just about like making those gradual steps towards like hopefully top four eventually.
Yeah, that to me is the same thing. I think Buller and Luai, who are both, technically at the moment with options off contract at the end of the year, that's really got to be the focus to lock down those two for next year. I think as long as that happens, perhaps we don't need. I don't think there's any glaring gaps where we need to sign a big name
Mm.
across our squad. Obviously, there'll be some depth changes next year, as there is kind of every year in this kind of bottom 5 to 6. Unless Will Craig has a breakout end of the season, I imagine he won't continue on. But I think other than those kind of bottom depth positions, which can be filled by young guys coming through or someone like Tavana, but I don't think we need any outside signings for this year. Our depth is fairly good. I think the forward depth is good. I think the backline depth is probably better than we expected, given how the depth players have been playing these last few weeks. Probably the only thing I'd think of is bringing in a hooker over Tristan Hope. Like that's probably, is he good enough as a bench hooker? And if I look at our season, it all can be okay. The only thing that can make it fall apart is if Appy gets hurt, touch wood, because that's the one I think which we can't cover for across the board. So
Yeah. We need Appy to be fit and firing for another 12 months at least. Yeah. And
but then if you bring someone in, even if you bring in a backup hooker, I mean,
yeah,
Appy going down is the best backup hooker you could buy still doesn't fix that. So
no,
I'm not
exactly.
really sure. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, like if you look at next year, maybe I guess you want to be moving on guys like Mason and Hope, and maybe strengthening what they bring. Because the New South Wales Cup team still maybe a little bit better than it has been, but still a few question marks there. Apparently, Suka is going well and is a pretty good back row option if we do have a problem there. It's interesting because we've spoken so much about Lock, and then Lock seems to be okay. It's really, really a lot of moving pieces. But Buller, I think, is important for that stability. And if he does move on, then maybe we need to move on quickly as well and start building something there with a new fullback. But anyway, fingers crossed that's a moot point. Fingers crossed. Yeah. So basically, we'll wait and see what the team is on Tuesday. Long break before the Eels game to next Monday. So do you think that's a good thing, Declan? I mean, we want to keep that momentum, and we've got one more day off than they do. But how do you feel about that having the long break between?
I don't really think it comes into play really. Like I think when you've got like a short turnaround, obviously that factors in to like recovery and then like picking up the intensity and the sharpness. But yeah, I think as long as you've got like a regular amount of time, I think it should be fine. So I don't really have any concerns about being rusty. And as well, like it seems like they're kind of playing at the moment that kind of simplistic,
Yeah.
like, all right, we're gonna like run it hard and try and pin them in the corner. So it's not like they're kind of over reliant on skill based footy at the moment. So, and I think that could really work against Parramatta as well, where
Mm.
we could beat them physically, where we don't have to kind of risk it with the ball in hand as much, which plays to our strengths at the moment because we don't have Luai. So we need to keep it as simple as possible. So I don't really have any concerns about the long turnaround. It's just a bit of a shame that we don't have anyone coming back
Yeah.
this week, which maybe Toa, to be fair, like maybe he's like not that far away, but I don't know for sure.
Declan, if Toa came back, or Joel, if Toa comes back, what do you do with the outside backs? Like,
I'd
yeah,
put Toa in. Yeah, like he's just the experience. Like it's not perfect. It's going to have some problems, but like he's a first grade player, and I know that like Makasini and Lily, did really really well, but like obviously Toa would come in the right. Actually, I don't know. Like it's
that's
tough.
what I
I
was
actually think
wondering. Yeah,
Taruva is like I actually think he's done a good job, but then like Taruva, he's probably more of a winger, so. Like, could you like keep Tavana on the wing and then put Truva like for the Lily spot, and then I don't know, it's a tough one,
Well,
but yeah, I would find a place for Stafford at the moment. He wouldn't be in my top 17 fully fit, but at the moment, I think that I think that we need his experience.
I think a lot of it comes down to Skelton, who, I mean, as you said, Josh, he could have been okay. Maybe I think he's got a lingering injury, and that's why he didn't get a go. But if he's fit, then you put him and you put Toa together on the right, and you put Taruva and Makasini on the left,
mm,
potentially.
that's
Yeah.
reasonable. Yep.
We'll wait and see. And I'm a bit worried about your math there too, Josh, because you said if one of the players goes down after, what was it, 4 or 5 minutes, he'd have to play 80 minutes.
Well, close enough to 80 minutes. Yeah, yeah. I did. I was hoping I got away with that, Joel, after I said it. So thanks for bringing that back.
I'm always listening. Thank you, boys. Midweek pod, and we'll talk about the Eels game. They've already at favourites, the Eels, for that game. So yeah, it always fills me with a lot of dread and anxiety, that Eels game.
The
Thank
big
you, guys.
game, big game. Thank
Big
you.
game, huge game. Yep. Thanks,
Thanks, Joel.
Josh. Thanks, Declan.